Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It is early morning for me and I am 22 weeks and 5 days along. So today I thought I would do Liam's story and basically how we got pregnant, how and when the complications started, and once we found out that he was excuse me, that he was gone. I also do have his memory box here, this little memory box that the hospital gave, so I'll open that with you guys once his story is almost over and whatnot. So before I get into his story, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who reached out to me and said that I was brave for coming out as a methadone mom and talking about it on my channel. I really don't think that I'm brave for speaking about it. I just see that there's no other channels out there that are really discussing what it's like for us pregnant women who are on methadone, or even new moms that are on methadone. It's really difficult. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who was really supportive with that. I really appreciate it. So I guess I'll just jump into the story of, my little boy Liam and how he was taken. And I got pregnant about 2 months after I got shot. So after the home invasion, I was in the hospital for like a month, and then after I got out of the hospital, me and my husband weren't trying to have a baby at that point. We both, it's kind of funny because I had a really good friend at the time I used to go hang out with every single day, and when her and I would talk about me and my husband having sex, I would call it broken sex because he could barely walk and I could barely move. So it was I don't even know how to explain it, but it was really funny. It's kind of like one of those things, you had to be there. But anyways, so I think I got out of the hospital in May, and then I got pregnant by mid-June, end of June. Anyways, so from the beginning, I kind of was really worried, could my body handle it? My scar from getting shot was very tender and still very red, and I didn't know how my body would react to the stretching, so I was really worried about that. Even my friend that I was just saying, she was really worried, and she didn't think that I was ready to have a baby, but abortion was just not in the cards for me. I'm pro-life, and if you're not, that's great, but for me, it just wasn't an option. After I got shot, actually, they told me they weren't sure if I would be able to have any more children because of where the bullets went in and the surgery that I had, plus with my previous C-sections. Ow, I think I'm having a Braxton Hicks contraction. This shit hurts really bad. Oh my god. Sorry, guys. I've been getting these really bad cramps about an hour and a half after I take my medicine, and I don't know if anyone else is experiencing that. So if you're having cramping or whatever after you take your methadone like me, please let me know, because it hurts so bad. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm just gonna try to ignore it. Anyways, so they told me that they weren't sure if I was going to be able to have any kids, and that time would tell and all of that. And at the time, me and my husband really weren't having sex that often because, like I said, we were both in a lot of pain still, could barely move, but we did every once in a while. And then when I found out I was pregnant, I got really worried and thought, is this a good idea? Should I be pregnant right now? But like I said, abortion was not an option. Even my friends were worried, my family was worried, but everyone seemed really excited. So I think I was about like 10 weeks along. I had been really dragging my feet about going to the doctor. I mean, I know that the doctor won't see you anyways until after about 6 weeks, but I had kind of just been dragging my feet. I always like felt for some reason in the back of my mind like something was wrong, but I never wanted to like admit it, and I just thought I was being paranoid because I had been through so much, and you know, I was so stressed out and everything, and so I never really thought that this fear of mine could be a reality. And like, I've had my other 2 kids and they were just fine, so I just thought it was normal mom worries. And might I just say, when you're pregnant and you've never experienced loss or anything, it's like a total shock to find out that you could be pregnant and not go home with a baby. Like, before I lost my son, I never expected that I would be pregnant and then there was a possibility that I wouldn't have the baby. Like, obviously, yes, I know that there are miscarriages, stillbirths, and, you know, freak accidents and stuff like that, but I never, ever, ever once thought it would happen to me or could happen to me. I always just thought, oh, that's just 1 in 1,000 women. That's not gonna be me, but it was. So I finally went to the doctor. You know, everything was fine. I was really nauseous a lot, and I had the cramps like I'm having even today. That I think that started at about 12 weeks. But basically everything was fine. Through my pregnancy, I was considered high risk anyways from the get-go with him because it was so soon after having the surgery. And so they wanted me to see him, my regular OBGYN, but they also wanted me to see a perinatologist. I went in at 18 weeks for my anatomy scan, and everything was great, cool, fine. But 2 days later, so the day after I had my ultrasound, I think it was like nighttime, my husband and I had sex, and right afterwards I saw like the tiniest bit of brown mixed in, and I immediately knew something was wrong, and I told my husband, and he was like, oh, it's probably just from irritating your cervix, it's fine. If it's not blood, you know, whatever. So it was fine. The next day we got up, I took him to the methadone, we went to the methadone clinic because at this time I didn't have my weekly take home, so we still had to go like pretty much every day. And so we went to the clinic, and then we ate at McDonald's, and when we got home, I was in my bathroom and I was just doing my makeup, and I was getting ready to go over to my friend's house, and all of a sudden I felt like a little gush of wetness, and immediately at that time, like, I knew it wasn't discharge or pee or anything like that. Like, I don't know if anyone else out there knows what I'm talking about, but for me, I just knew. It just felt different to me. I knew immediately that that was blood. So I went to the bathroom, and I'm gonna like look around a lot because I'm thinking, but anyways, so I went to the bathroom, and then when I wiped, I saw that there was bright red blood, and I immediately freaked out, called my husband. I was like crying and freaking out. I thought we were losing the baby. So he rushed me to the hospital down the street where I'm planning to deliver anyways, and we got there, and I felt like they were just going so slow. Like, I went into the emergency room, they asked me what was going on, they asked me how far along I was, and then they got me back really quickly. I'm not gonna lie about that. They got me back like immediately, got me in a room and all of that, but nobody came to like see if there was a heartbeat. And I don't know if there's like a certain reason for that. So let me know in the comment section if there's like a certain reason why they don't do that in the emergency room. But nobody came with like the Doppler to like listen to see if there was a heartbeat. And nobody really came to say anything to me for like 2 hours. And I get it, they're busy, you know. But at the time I was just like, I just wanted to know, like, if I was losing my baby, I wanted to know what was going on. And I felt like it was just taking so long at that point. And finally, and they didn't even give me like one of those little pad things to like lay on the bed, and I was like continuing to bleed quite a bit. So at that point, I think I was like, at that day I was like 18 weeks and like 5 days or something. And then so I got my ultrasound, and then they finally came back and they told me that that the baby was fine, and that I had they told me that baby was fine. Liam was fine at the time. He had a great heartbeat, 144 beats per minute, and then also that I had placenta previa, and part of my placenta was covering my cervix, which was causing me to have a heavy bleed. At the time they told me, you know, it can be harmful to the baby, it can be fatal, you know, whatever, but usually it's not. And they told me that my placenta might move up, and if not, they wanted to deliver me at 34 weeks because my doctor was so concerned about me having placenta accreta on top of the placenta previa. Placenta accreta is where your placenta attaches to the scar tissue of your old C-section scar. Because I've had 2 previous C-sections, he was worried that my placenta had embedded into the scar tissue. And the reason why it's so scary is because if that happens when you go to deliver, the placenta cannot detach itself from your body, and then it will, from your uterus, and then you can hemorrhage and bleed to death. So they were telling me, because of the placenta previa and because they thought I might have an accreta, that they did not want me to possibly go into labor, so they would give me steroids, and they would give me steroids for his lungs and deliver me at 34 weeks if the placenta didn't move up. So I was on strict bed rest, pelvic rest, all of that. They didn't want me moving around or anything. And then what happened after that? So it's really hard to be on like strict bed rest when you have kids. Luckily my children have been with my mom since before I got shot, so I didn't have to deal with them every single day, but they were with me on the weekends, and I felt like they needed my attention more because I'm not with them every single day. And I knew I was supposed to be on bed rest, but I didn't do anything crazy. I didn't like pick them up, but I did walk around the house and like play with them, and like, you know, I did nails with my daughter, and I played like Legos with my son and stuff. But everything was fine after that, you know. So we had, you know, it was a huge scare, but they didn't tell me like, be weary that the baby might pass away or anything like that. Like, it didn't seem like anything was gonna happen. Sorry, I just got a text. It didn't seem like anything was gonna happen. It just seemed like, oh, if your placenta doesn't move up, then we're gonna have to deliver you at 34 weeks because you might have a placenta accreta, and we might have to do a hysterectomy. Oh, that's one thing that I don't know if I said that, because pregnancy brain is real. Anyways, if my placenta had attached to my uterus, they would have had to do an emergency hysterectomy because you can hemorrhage and bleed to death. So I was thinking, you know, that I was going to have to possibly have a hysterectomy, but at that point I was okay because I had my daughter, I have my son, and then I was going to have Liam. So I thought, okay, if I have to have this done, at least I have my 3 babies and I'm happy. So it wasn't a big deal to me. I didn't even really think about it again. So then at 20 weeks, and I'll never forget it was on November 6th because it was the day that I went to vote. Me and my husband went to the clinic, and then we went and ate at McDonald's, and I pulled up to the school that we were gonna vote at, and we walked in, and I'm still on bed rest at this point, so this was 2 weeks later. I was like 20 weeks and 2 days, I think. And when we got in there, all of a sudden I felt like, and mind you, okay, so sorry, let me go back a second. So after we left the hospital, they told me, you know, you can continue to bleed or you can stop bleeding and then start again. But the doctor told me, unless it's an even bigger bleed than the first time, you know, you don't have to come back to the hospital. So I was like, okay, because he told me you are definitely going to bleed again with placenta previa. So 2 weeks later, when we went to go vote, I walked in and I was waiting in line, and I felt like wetness, but this time it didn't feel like blood like the first time. Like, when I knew it was blood immediately, but it didn't feel like that this time. It was like watery, and I was like, oh my God, my water broke. And my husband luckily had a jacket on because I was just in a t-shirt and sweatpants, and I told my husband, like, I need your jacket, because I could feel that it was like not a whole shit ton, but it was like, it was enough. It was quite a bit. So I knew it was gonna like run down the back of my pants, so I tied his sweater around my waist, and I just hurried up and voted really quick because I was already there, and I knew we were gonna go to the hospital right after that. But it felt like my water broke, and so we went to the hospital, and I told him, I think my water broke. I'm 20 weeks and 2 days, and we get there, and they go to like, because now I guess after 20 weeks, you go straight to labor and delivery, so you don't sit in the emergency room anymore. So now that I was 20 weeks, they sent me up to the to the labor and delivery ward, and they immediately went to monitor the baby's heartbeat and my contractions. And when they did that, the lady couldn't find his heartbeat at first, and like my heart just immediately dropped because I thought my water broke because he died and he was gone. So I started freaking out and crying, and I was like, you can't find him. And she was like, no, these machines are meant to pick up bigger babies. He's just really small right now, and that's why we can't find him. Let me go get one of the smaller fetal Dopplers. So she ran to grab that, and when she got it, she was able to find his heartbeat. It was perfect, and he was okay. And so then they found it with the Doppler, and they put the machine on where she found it with the small one, and then they turned it up like louder so that we could hear it, and it was fine. He was perfectly fine, good and dandy. And I asked them to do like the swab test to see if my water broke. So the doctor comes in, and he decides not to do that test, but to give me an ultrasound to see where my fluid was. But he said the fluid looked good, whatever, but I knew that my water broke, and I should have said something, and this is something that I like struggled with a lot, because it didn't seem like it broke. It seemed like it had like a small leak in it, and it was like leaking out a little bit. So I was also bleeding at that point. So, and I'm so frustrated, but and the thing is, like, it wouldn't have helped anything. He was too small at that point, and it just wouldn't, I think of all these things that I could have done, but the truth is it wouldn't have helped. But, I remember sitting there, and the blood was not like normal blood. It was very watery, and, I knew, but I didn't want to admit it, I guess. So they told me, because this was the second time I was having a pretty big bleed, that they were going to keep me in the hospital until I stopped bleeding for a certain amount of time. And so they kept me in the hospital for 2 days, and we did ultrasounds. Baby was fine. He was great. And then I left 2 days later. I was still on bed rest. They told me, like, be careful, come back to the hospital if if you even have, like, the one nurse told me, come if you feel a pad full of blood, but the other nurse was like, if you even have the tiniest bit of blood, just come back just to check on your baby. It's never, it's never silly to come in to check on your baby. And so I told her, okay, but I had already been in the hospital like 3 times. I felt stupid coming in there for blood, because the doctor made it seem like there's nothing that they can do until 24 weeks, 1, and 2, that it's just bleeding from me and it's not affecting him. So I get home, and like the next morning, I had my husband go buy me some panty liners, and the next morning, I felt like a little bit of, I kept having like that watery blood, and like it was almost brown some days, but it just was very watery. It was not like normal blood, and sometimes it was just like brown, and and then it stopped. So the next week was the 21 weeks. I was bleeding, and I had been passing clots, but I passed a huge clot. And now looking back on it, like, I'm pretty sure it was my mucus plug, and I just didn't want to admit it. And so when that came out, I felt it. It came out in one piece. I'd never gone into labor before, because I had 2 C-sections. My first one was scheduled because my daughter was breech, so she would have come out like butt first. And my second, he was emergency C-section, because while I was having a contraction, his heart dipped. So we weren't gonna even try to keep going. So I just forgot where I was in the story. Oh, so because I've never gone into labor before, I don't know what a mucus plug looks like. I don't know what the contractions feel like, or the different stages of labor and all of that. And then, so at 22 weeks and 2 days, so for a couple days after this, I lost my mucus plug, and I was having the little tiny like squirts of water mixed in with blood. I didn't go back to the hospital, because I just figured that it was blood, and it was because of the placenta previa. I even told my husband, I think my water's leaking, and he asked me if I wanted to go to the hospital, but I just was tired of going in there because I felt like they were like annoyed with me, even though they weren't. I don't know why. I just felt so stupid, and I look back on it now and wish I would have done things differently, but it wouldn't have changed anything. So anyways, on the night before Thanksgiving, I was like having like cramps, and I was having a lot of back pain, and I was just super uncomfortable, and I hadn't really felt him move that much. I guess they said because where my placenta was, it was like masking the movements. They said it was either that or his cord, and I'll explain that in a minute. But so I was having a lot of cramps and everything the night before Thanksgiving, and I kept waking up like every like 3-4 hours, but I just thought it was Braxton Hicks contractions. So then the next morning I woke up and I was really, really uncomfortable, and my brother-in-law came from Utah, and we were gonna go have breakfast, and I was still really uncomfortable. So now it's Thanksgiving, and I was just really uncomfortable, but we were all gonna be eating at Marie Callender's for Thanksgiving instead of cooking, because everyone came from out of town. I was having these cramps all day long, and I knew that I was in labor, but I just didn't want to like admit it to myself, so I was still like in denial at this point. I thought to myself, you know, oh, you're having these cramps, go to dinner, or get ready for dinner and just go to dinner, because you're gonna either be cramping and miserable at home, or you can cramp and because I was totally fine in between them. So I knew like, okay, at this point it's like 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and they were probably like maybe 10 minutes apart. So I was like, okay, I can deal with it. I'm gonna go to dinner with everyone in the family. Like, my brother-in-law was there with his wife, and they had just had their new baby, so I really wanted to go to dinner. So I got in the shower, I did my hair, my makeup, everything. In between contractions, I'm like feeling so much pain. My husband went to go get the kids, and when he got back, the contractions started to pick up to the point where like I realized at this point, whether I didn't want to admit it or not, I was in labor. And I started timing the contractions, and I gotta tell you, my daughter Madison, stop, you're like in the corner of my video being disgusting. Anyways, my daughter Madison is such a sweetheart. She didn't even understand what was going on, but she was helping me time my contractions. She was pressing the button for me, and I just remember that I was in tears in between the contractions. They hurt so bad, and just hearing the kids talking and my husband talking in the background, I was like, everybody please be quiet. Like, I was just in so much pain. Finally, and my husband kept asking me, he'd been asking me for 2 hours, do you want to go to the hospital? Do you want to go to the hospital? And I kept saying no. Finally, I told him, we got to go to the hospital. Like, we've got to go to the hospital. Like, I'm in pain. Something's wrong. You know, I start getting online because I know I'm in labor and I know the baby's coming. At this point, I thought he was alive. And so we get in the car, and we, of course, my husband, when he goes to work, he is exhausted when he gets off. He doesn't put gas in the car if it's on empty, and of course the car's on fucking empty, and we have to get gas before we go to the hospital, because we won't make it to the hospital. So he runs in the gas station to pay for it and pump the gas, and I'm like in so much pain. I'm like crying, and we get to the hospital, and we get up to, I tell them what's going on, and they get me a wheelchair and wheel me up to labor and delivery. And when we get there, they stick me in triage. Well, keep in mind, 2 weeks before that, when I went into triage and they put the monitors on my belly, they couldn't find his heartbeat because he was so small. So the lady goes to hook me up to the machines to see what's going on, and she can see that I'm having contractions, but she can't find Liam's heartbeat. And so I'm like, oh, I tell her, oh yeah, when I was here 2 weeks ago, they couldn't find his heartbeat either. The lady said it's because he's so small. So she goes, okay, I'm gonna go find a fetal Doppler and I'll be right back. So she gets the small fetal Doppler and she comes back in and she's like putting it on my belly. And during my pregnancy with Liam, he was always very, very low. And when I say low, I mean like pubic area low. Like I almost felt like he was like kicking my cervix. So, she's like looking like all the way, like she's like looking like all the way up here and here, and I'm trying to tell her like, no, he's down here, but she wasn't quite listening to me. And hold on, sorry guys, now I gotta fix y'all. Come on. Okay, but now we're like crooked. Nope. Shit. Oh, come the fuck on. Is that good? Whatever. You guys are here for this story, not how I look. Come on, bitch. Just stand up. What are you doing? Oh my gosh, I will totally edit this out if I don't forget that it's there. Come on. Okay. Anyways, so the lady went to go get the fetal Doppler, and when she came back, she was like checking like up here, and like I was trying to tell her like, you gotta be down here. When I get like upset or like nervous, I kind of do this weird thing with my lips. So anyways, yeah, don't pay attention to that. So anyways, guys, so she came back in with the Doppler and she was checking me, and I kept trying to tell her like, he's super, super low. Maybe that's why you can't find his heartbeat. And, me and my husband give each other this look like this nurse doesn't know what she's doing. And it's so ridiculous because I don't even like the irrational thought like, oh, this lady just doesn't know what she's doing. This is her job. She does this all day, every day, but she just doesn't know what she's doing with my belly. Like, no. So anyways, she couldn't find his heartbeat with the fetal Doppler. So she calls another nurse in to try, and she can't find it either with the Doppler. And at this point, I'm just thinking that he's so low that they can't find it. So they grab an ultrasound machine, and the doctor comes in at this point, and they're like, the doctor's just gonna go ahead and do an ultrasound really quick to make sure everything's okay, and blah blah blah. And the last time they did the ultrasound, it was like right there in front of me and my husband, so my husband could see our son and everything, and he could see that baby was fine. But this time when they did the ultrasound, it was he said he couldn't see anything. Like, he thought the doctor was like looking in a weird spot or something. And, you know, after that, after he did the ultrasound with the nurses didn't say anything to me because they can't, you know, and I know they can't. But all of a sudden they tell me that they're going to move me into another room. And when they had moved me into another room to keep me for the 2 nights when I was at 20 weeks, they didn't put me in a labor and delivery room. They put me in a postpartum room. So when they moved my bed and they wheeled me into a room that had like the baby warmer and all of that, I knew that something was wrong, and I knew he was coming. But at that point I just thought, okay, he's coming early, like hopefully they'll try to resuscitate him and he's strong enough. And because I had been reading online about babies that had survived at 22 weeks, 23 weeks, so I was just hoping and praying that he would be strong enough. And then the doctor comes in, and, you know, they're getting ready and all of that, and the doctor comes in and he like grabs me by my arm and he just looks at me and he's like, I'm sorry, but it looks like there's no more heartbeat. And I can't even like explain how I felt at that moment. Everything just almost went like blank. You know, it's Thanksgiving and my kids are waiting. It's 4:30 in the afternoon. My kids are waiting because they think that me and my husband are going to go meet them to have dinner with everyone. I'm about to meet my brand new niece who's a month old. And, you know, the doctor grabs my arm and he tells me that there's no more heartbeat. And I didn't even know how to process it. I said, are you sure? Can you check again? And he held me by my arm and he said, yeah, we can check again. We can make sure one more time, but it looks like he's gone. And, you know, it was, and then at that point, everything just started happening so fast. They did not want me to give birth vaginally. At that point, they were like, no way. They started to do the ultrasound again to check to see if he had a heartbeat, and they said, no, he doesn't have a heartbeat. So everyone started running around the room. It got really, really hectic for about 30 minutes. They were like, call the OR, she needs a C-section immediately. And they had the high-risk doctor come in at this point and explain to me that I might have to have a hysterectomy because of the placenta accreta. So at this point, I'm thinking I'm going to have a C-section to remove my dead son and then have a hysterectomy afterwards because of the placenta accreta, and I'm not going to get another chance to have another baby. And I felt like God was punishing me for something that I don't know, for something that I didn't know that I did. I thought, you know, getting shot was punishment enough for the shitty things I had done as an addict, but I felt like I was just being kicked in the fucking teeth. And they're all running around the room and they're trying to get another IV in my arm because the first IV blew, and they poked me like 6 times. And the whole time that they're doing this and they're all talking, it was just going in one ear and out the other. I can't even remember half the shit they were saying. And they poked me about 7 times. I'm not even joking. And I just laid there staring up at the light like a zombie. Like I didn't move or anything. My husband kept his composure really well. He sat there with me the whole time. But they couldn't get an IV and they needed to get me into surgery. So this whole time I'm still contracting. I'm in And as soon as they told me that he didn't have a heartbeat anymore, I got this huge hot flash and felt like I was going to throw up. Like, and I was in so much pain. I was crying. They were trying to fix my IV. Or they needed 2 IVs. I had 1 IV, but they needed 2 for the surgery. But they couldn't get a second one on me. So they gave me Dilaudid for the pain. And then as they were trying to get another IV, they were going to end up putting it in my neck. When I got shot, that's what they had to do so that they could do emergency surgery on me. They had to put a central line, is what it's called, in my neck. So the anesthesiologist came in and was going to put it in my neck, and it's crazy how quickly everything changed. The doctor, I told him I was feeling some pressure, and the doctor checked me, and Liam was right there ready to come out head first. So the doctor still had the OR ready just in case I started hemorrhaging. They could take me for the hysterectomy, but they let me push him out vaginally. I didn't have an epidural. I didn't have like the gas or anything. Everything happened so quickly that I didn't get a chance to have any of that. And by the way, sorry this video is so long, but it's a long story. So after that, I delivered him, and something happened while he was coming out. He had like a little scratch on his nose or something, but my husband kept it together really well until when I pushed and he came out. That ring of fire is no joke. I cannot imagine a full-grown baby, because my little 22-week, like 500-gram baby was very, very painful. But he just like flew out afterwards, and it like freaked my husband out. He like totally lost it. They asked if we wanted to hold the baby, and I said yes immediately. He first said no, which is totally understandable. But the nurses were so awesome. They cleaned him up, and they like put his little hands like this, and I'll put some I don't think I'm gonna put any pictures in this video because it's just gonna make it longer, but there are pictures on my Instagram if you want to go look. But this is the little hat that they put on him, and if you guys want to know how small he was a little bit smaller than this little teddy bear. We like held it up to him, and this was like kind of huge on his head. So but after he was born, they put on this little hat, and they gave him to me, and they had already called like a photographer that was totally free, and I didn't even think that they would have anything available like that, considering it was Thanksgiving at 5 o'clock at night, where most people are having dinner. But I held him, my family came, and they held him, and we named him, and my brother-in-laws gave me a blessing, and they gave the baby a blessing, and I think the photographer came about 10 o'clock at night, and after like 3 hours I started to do a little bit better, but when they came to take his photos, I got so upset and I was crying, and the girl who took the photos, she took my hands and she said, I just want you, because I started to feel guilty, like, I'm so sorry I pulled you away from your family on Thanksgiving, but she was just so great, and she said to me, I'm so sorry. She had my hands, and she said, I'm so sorry, but I'm here not as a burden, but because I have been through the same thing that you've gone through, and that's why I'm here. And I started crying, and it just made everything so much better. Finally, after that, after they took his pictures, we gave him our last kisses, and we had the nurse take him, and they gave me this box, and on the inside of the box it says, "This care package was made for you by another grieving parent in honor of their baby. We hope that you find comfort during this difficult day. When someone you love becomes a memory, their memory becomes a treasure. Sincerely, Jalen's Gift Foundation." Now that I'm pregnant with my rainbow, I want to be able to give this baby in my belly this toy to remember his little brother. And this is the shirt that they had given for Liam, but it was way too big for him, so we just decided to wrap him in the blanket and the little hat that they gave him. And then I also have his ultrasound pictures, like all of his ultrasound pictures from when he was in my belly. And this is the little box that they gave me. And they also gave me a little, like, keepsake book. And then they also gave me this really cute little card. That was really sweet of them. These boxes are very sweet. But I do have to say that walking out of the hospital when you're supposed to have a baby is just, this box is nothing compared to walking out with your baby. Luckily for me, when everything happened, the hospital, like labor and delivery, was empty. I didn't have to listen to any heartbeats around me or moms that were in labor and like all happy. The whole time I was there, there was nobody. I was like the only one there, which was like crazy. But that's basically his story. I mean, we got him cremated. And I have his ashes, and we love him very much. And it's crazy to think that his brother or sister will be here 2 weeks or 1 week maybe before Liam's first birthday in heaven. So the due date's November 9th, and if we went past the due date for some reason, which we won't, but if we did, he would be here even closer, or no, not closer, but you know what I mean. Yeah, he or she would be here about 2 weeks before Liam's first birthday in heaven, so that'll be really special. But yeah, so I just wanted to share his story now that I felt comfortable to do so. And I'm sorry that the video is so long, so bear with me on that, you guys. But I'm just very thankful that we are having a baby again, and that I didn't have to have a hysterectomy. The placenta came out just fine, by the way. I totally forgot about that part. But I ended up delivering him just fine, and he passed away due to a cord accident. He had a really tight knot in his cord, and they believe that even though I had placenta previa, I was actually bleeding because the placenta started detaching from Liam not getting enough nutrients from the knot in his cord. So I just want to say to all the moms out there that have been through a stillbirth or a miscarriage that I completely understand how you feel, and there is no one way to grieve the loss of your child. It took a long time for me, and everyone thought I was just going to go down the tubes and relapse and ruin my life, and it didn't happen that way. I knew I wanted to have another baby, not to replace Liam or anything like that, but I just wanted a baby. I knew that it would happen and that Heavenly Father would bless me when it was time, and He did. Now I am almost 23 weeks and I am so excited. So stay tuned for more updates on that. I'm not gonna make this video any longer than it needs to be, but I will post an update for second trimester and 23 weeks. And then also I want to do a video on how to tell if you're having pregnancy symptoms or symptoms that you need to go up on your medicine, so on your methadone. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And just remember and love Liam, okay? Just like I did. Bye, guys.